Hello and welcome to the ECA Bay Area Summer Workshop. Once again online, we hope to be able to return in person with our meetings that are held around the Bay Area some point soon, but maybe not yet this year. Just some general information about Zoom meetings. Now, you've probably been on many Zoom meetings. This is like those that you have with your coworkers and colleagues and family where we can see everybody, and we encourage you to keep your camera on so we feel like we're actually all together, but do keep your sound muted, except when you may be speaking at some point. We may be letting you just ask questions, though generally you'll put your questions into the chat. We do have ASL interpreters that will be visible and taking turns, so we really appreciate them being with us. There's also a live transcript that you can manage. That each computer, and if you're on mobile device versus desktop, your settings may be different, but you may be able to turn that on or off as needed. And again, you can use the chat in the reactions menu on your menu bar. You should also see the raise hand feature. So as we let a few more people in, just to, before we officially kick off, also be looking at the chat through the meeting. We'll be posting lots of links there for you, for your use and to share with others. And as we'll say also during the meeting, this meeting is being recorded. And the recording will be online by early to mid next week. We will also post the PowerPoint as a PDF from today's presentation and make a file with all the links too. So if you don't capture off every link, they will be available on the same web page where you registered by next week, earthquakecountry.org/Bay Area. All right, so I'd like to then, my name is Mark Benthien, Earthquake Country Alliance Executive Director. Welcome again, just one last moment. Please keep your sound muted when you're not speaking. Keep your camera on if you like, so we can feel like we're all together, and use the chat to ask questions. We'll be then calling on those. We may answer the chat question in the chat, so everybody be looking for that. And I remind our speakers and others to, if someone messages you a general question directly, please, when you reply, make it so that everyone will see that answer along with the question, so people understand what you're answering. Okay, with that, I'd like to introduce the co-chairs of Earthquake Country Alliance for the Bay Area. And today we have Dina Gunning from Central County Fire in San Mateo County, Daniel Holmesy with the City and County of San Francisco. We're not able to be joined today by Ray Bonilla from Kaiser Permanente. Dina and Daniel.
Great, thanks, Mark. Welcome, everybody. Glad to see such great attendance. And just like Mark said, we really can't wait to get in person, but we're so happy that you could join us today. So welcome. Just a little bit about the Earthquake Country Alliance Bay Area. We're up to 3,000 plus public-private grassroots leaders, which is just incredible from where we started, how many years ago, right? I think we're right into over a decade for the program. And so we have local regional alliances that organize these meetings and outreach activities. So we have several of those we can go through. The Earthquake Country Alliance is broken apart. You can see the map here, ECA Central Coast, ECA Southern California, and the Redwood Coast Tsunami Working Group, and of course, our Bay Area Earthquake Country Alliance, which we're here today for today's workshop. Our California Office of Emergency Services provides FEMA funding for our ECA activities, and USC Southern California Earthquake Center administers our program. So we're very grateful for all the funding and to be able to do this great work. If you'd like to join us, you can email earthquakecountry.org /alliance. We're always looking for new membership, and share the information, please. So our coordinating committee, Mark introduced us as co-chairs. Our communications coordinator, Susan Garcia from USGA, and Leah Turk, our events bureau coordinator, Chief David Cosgrave from Coastside Fire Protection, and Casey Treadway from San Mateo Consolidated Fire. Our media bureau, Janet Ruiz and Jennifer Strauss, and our membership coordinator, Wendy Ellis, and our participation bureau coordinator, Terry Langdon. Our regional workshop coordinator now is Jeff Arith. We know Genevieve retired, so congratulations to Genevieve and welcome to Jeff, and thank you for taking on that role. And we do have a sector-based committee coordinator position open, so if you are at all interested in participating, please talk to Sharon and email bayarea@earthquakecountry.org, and we'll get you connected. Our agenda for today, we're going to talk about ShakeOut, how it works, and the early earthquake. I always confuse the two. I always want to say early earthquake warning, but earthquake early warning alerts with Dr. Angela Chung from Berkeley, sharing strategies, tips for using ECA resources and messaging from our own Jason Ballmann from SCEC. And we'll get a chance today to hear from our mini award recipients from 2021. And we'll talk about the 2022 announcement for those mini awards. We'll have a Quake Break, Bay Area Seismic Activity, and that will be with Dr. Austin Elliott. And we'll talk about ShakeOut 2021 and the statewide updates from Mark, and our mitigation movement resources and information from Anne Rosinski of FEMA Region 9. And of course, Annde Ewertsen, our California Earthquake Authority Mitigation Director, and we'll get some updates from them. So we are here today to talk about our first ShakeOut, ShakeAlert, how it works, and providing early earthquake warning. Dr. Chung is going to do this presentation for us. She's a project scientist for the earthquake early warning at the Berkeley Seismology Lab. She primarily works on EPIC, the ShakeAlert point source algorithm, but she is also heavily involved in the performance analysis of the overall ShakeAlert system. So welcome, Dr. Angela Chung. Angela?
All right, hopefully you can all see that. As mentioned, my name is Annde Chung, and today I'll be talking to you about the ShakeAlert Earthquake Early Warning System. So I don't know who knows what here, so we'll start with a bit about what the system is and how it works, and then we'll discuss what we can actually expect to experience from the system. So what is Earthquake Early Warning? Earthquake Early Warning is not prediction. What we do is detect earthquakes soon after they occur, and then we provide a warning to people further out that they're about to feel shaking. Now, these warnings can come via cell phone apps like MyShake, or through wireless emergency alerts. Or we also have some partners who are exploring the feasibility of using these shake alerts to begin some automated processes like slowing down BART trains. Now, the ShakeAlert Earthquake Early Warning System is fully operational throughout the entire West Coast now, so that's pretty exciting for us. So let's get started with some questions about what to expect from our system. When a large earthquake occurs somewhere within our alerting boundary, our system detects the waves using our network of sensors. This map is a little bit outdated, but it shows currently installed and planned stations as of 2019. There are a lot of stations here, and that is because so that then we can detect the earthquakes as quickly as possible. After all, we can't detect any earthquakes where we don't have any sensors. So we have as many stations as we can. Now, to give you a sense of just how fast our system works, I have this diagram here. So the wiggles going up here, those are the waveforms from a magnitude 4.5 earthquake near LA. And again, these blue lines, those are the full waveforms for the whole event. Now, we use just this tiny amount of data here, the amount of data that's in the circle, we use that to determine where the earthquake is and how large the earthquake is. So we're just using a tiny bit of data. And the reason for that is because then we can provide as much warning as possible. The trade-off is, of course, that we're doing this super fast. So we might not get the location and the magnitude perfect every time, We still think we do a pretty good job overall. Now let's see, a little while ago, I made a short video to help explain some of the concepts of earthquake early warning, which included this setup here. In this example, the palm tree is the epicenter over here, and that's where the earthquake starts. The chess pieces are the sensors. These are our seismic network, with the brown sensors indicating stations that have been triggered by the earthquake waves, that green circle, as it moves out from the epicenter. We currently require 4 stations to trigger in order to detect an event. So in order to give you a sense of what to expect from alerts, I'm going to introduce you to Bob, the dinosaur who's near the epicenter here, and then the rest are all of his friends. Unfortunately for Bob, he's right next to the epicenter. So again, we have to detect the waves with our sensors in order to know that an earthquake is happening. It also takes a couple of seconds to use that information to know where the earthquake is, how big it is, and then to distribute the alert. So if someone is closer to the epicenter than our sensors, like Bob here, they're not going to be able to get a timely warning. That's one of the limitations of our system. So this area here in the gray, that's the late alert zone. Everyone else, including all of Bob's friends here, they're going to be able to get a warning. And the further away they are from the epicenter, the more warning time they'll have before those waves reach them, before they experience strong shaking. So just to give you kind of a sense of how the system works, I don't know if you guys have ever seen one of these replays from our user display, but it kind of gives you a sense of how the system is working. So in this, you'll see a star pop up. That's the estimated location of the Ridgecrest earthquake. And then you'll see these circles that are expanding. Those are the waves that are moving away from the epicenter. This setup is with respect to a position here at the LA City Hall. And what we'll see is the countdown as those waves get closer to the City Hall. I'm going to start playing it. It's kind of loud. I don't know if you can hear it, but we have the star here. This is the location. The waves are moving out. The magnitude is here. You can see those waves moving out, getting closer to LA. So I like the video because it kind of gives you a sense. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but eventually those waves reach LA. But that using this example, we actually had a warning time of about 48 seconds to City Hall from the Ridgecrest earthquake epicenter, which is pretty good. Okay, so next, what can we expect when there's a big earthquake? So let's take, for example, again, the Ridgecrest earthquake. Now, hopefully for this example, we've sent out an alert for the large main shock, the biggest earthquake. And the problem is that in the minutes and hours following that large earthquake, there will be lots and lots and lots of aftershocks. It's really challenging for our system to detect all of these aftershocks, especially immediately after the largest earthquake. So if we just have a look here at this waveform, this is an example from Ridgecrest. There was a magnitude 5 earthquake just before the main shock here, the largest magnitude 7. And there's a number of other magnitude 5s that happened shortly afterwards. But within this noise, all these wiggles down here, there are hundreds of little tiny earthquakes that are happening. And it's just really hard for our system to be able to see through that and to pick out some of those medium-sized events. And we can see here, this is one of our review tools. The columns on the left, this is from the catalog. These are the earthquakes that did happen. And on the right, this is what our system detected. And you can see that after the magnitude 7 earthquake, there's about a 10-minute window where we weren't able to detect anything in the magnitude 4.5 or so range. And again, that's because if we go back, there's just so much noise happening, it's really difficult for our system to trigger. But if we look overall at the performance during that earthquake, we can see that in the first 24 hours, there were hundreds of aftershocks. But we managed to create alerts for 6 out of 7 of the magnitude 5 and larger earthquakes. We created alerts for about half of the magnitude 4.5 and larger. And we didn't do so well with about 3.5 and larger. So magnitude 3.5 is really pushing the thresholds of what we can detect during an intense earthquake sequence. But the takeaway is that for when a large earthquake happens, people should be prepared for aftershocks. So hopefully we'll be able to provide warning that during the large earthquake, people should know, hey, there's a big earthquake, we should be prepared for aftershocks. And ShakeAlert, from our experience, is likely to alert for about magnitude 5 and larger earthquakes. And that's really kind of the goal of our system, is to be able to alert for those earthquakes that are going to create pretty intense shaking. We want to be able to provide those useful alerts for when people are going to experience that strong shaking. So the next question is, what happens at the edges of the network where we have very little data? So as I mentioned previously, we have to detect the earthquake at our sensors. Otherwise, we don't know that it's happening. So we can't detect an earthquake that happens outside of our network until those seismic waves move into our network and are registered on our stations. Unfortunately, earthquakes seem to have this knack for occurring like right at the edges of our network. So some of the most problematic areas that we have are in these circles here, and these are right at the edges of our network. And when this happens, it's be pretty challenging for us to correctly locate and estimate the magnitude of the earthquake. So particularly in these areas, these are some of our problematic areas. The reason that these earthquakes are so challenging is because we just don't have a good enough station coverage in this area. We really need to see stations all the way around the earthquake in order to be able to detect them properly. And here's a fancy plot, which doesn't matter too much, except that you can see that the stations are plotted as little triangles there. And the actual earthquake location is the white square. Now, our system has a really hard time knowing where the earthquake happens when it's only got stations on one side. It doesn't know, it knows it's somewhere along this blue line, but it doesn't know if it's over here or over there. It really doesn't know. And so it's really hard to know exactly where that earthquake is happening when we don't have stations all the way around. Now, sometimes for these earthquakes, when they're at the edge of our network, we underestimate the magnitude. So we say it's smaller than it actually is. Like for this recent Antelope Valley earthquake, it was a magnitude 6, but we said it was a 4.8. There were a number of things that contributed to that problem, but and some of which we've been able to fix. But overall, sometimes we underestimate these earthquakes, so we put them in the wrong place when they're at the edge of the network. And we can see that the polygon for this event, this is our shaking alert area. It's a little bit far to the south. It's about 30 miles or so to the south here, compared with the actual location here. And so when we underestimate the magnitude, it means that we don't send the alert out quite as far as maybe we should have done. But the good thing is that we tend, because we have a pretty tolerant threshold, we tend to alert those people that experience the stronger shaking. Conversely, sometimes we actually overestimate the magnitude of an earthquake, like what happened in Tahoe recently. And when that happens, we actually alert more people than we needed to. But from my point of view, I think that it's kind of a useful thing anyway, because it works as a really great test drill for people, because people will get an alert. And even if they don't feel shaking, it helps them to get accustomed to the system, what that sound is, what their phone's doing, and to realize that this is the system that they have. And you know, they can get alerts and know how to use those alerts to protect themselves. Next, what can people expect in terms of warnings? So will they always feel shaking? So this kind of builds along that question of, if I get a warning, am I going to feel shaking? And again, if we overestimate, you might get a warning without feeling shaking. But sometimes, like in this case here, for this magnitude 5.3 earthquake in Southern California, we nailed this earthquake. We got the magnitude right, we got the location right. But you can see from these alerting polygons here, again, this basically describes the region where we send out an alert to. And we alert within this MMI3 polygon. So anyone within this area would receive an alert. So there are some people within that area. This is the shake map, which shows the actual recorded motions. Some people in here are going to feel really, really strong shaking. Some people a little bit further out within the alerting area, they'll feel shaking, but maybe pretty weak shaking, or maybe they won't feel shaking at all. It kind of depends on what building they're in, what the soil is like under them, if they're in the car or not, right? So kind of people might experience different things, but everyone within that alerting area is going to feel, going to receive an alert. And then finally, just to kind of give you expectations of performance, since about 2019 in September, these are all the earthquakes that we've detected with our system. We've had 58 matched events. So that's when there is an earthquake in the catalog and we said there was an alert, that we said that there was an earthquake and correctly alerted for that earthquake. There have been no missed events, and there was one false alert. The one false alert was to do with an earthquake that we basically decided it was 2, where it was actually 1. But overall, I think we're doing a really excellent job, and hopefully this gives you a sense of how our system is performing. So with that, I thank you. And I think I have time for a couple questions.
Yes, Angela, thank you very much. And we do have a question. How does the system compare to Google's Android earthquake alert system? What are the pros and cons?
So that's a great question. So the Android alert system is actually ShakeAlert. So so the Android system takes our alerts from ShakeAlert. They're one of our users. They take the alerts that we generate and then push those alerts through to anyone with an Android phone. So people with Androids don't actually have to download an app. They actually use the operating system native to Google, sorry, native to Android. And so they actually get our warnings. They're exploring using cell phones as seismometers in other places in the world. But in the US here, they use the ShakeAlert warnings to create those alerts on phones. Thank
you. And I'll point out that Sharon has put the links to both the MyShake app and then the overall earthquake warning California page in the chat. This talks about these different options. There's one more question. Can this app be linked into existing notification apps?
I can't really speak to how the app works. Unfortunately, I'm actually on the ShakeAlert side of things, which doesn't have much interplay with the apps.
Okay. I believe there are new apps that are getting the signal added into them for other states, and I know San Diego is doing something, so that may be related to that. But I think the thing is, it's always going to be something new. So you can, in California, go to earthquake.ca.gov, and those updates will likely be there. So and then Mark, just Barry, you had your hand raised to ask a question. Do you still have a question?
I did for Miss Angela, but when she said she wasn't, you know, kind of involved with that kind of took it away potentially, because my question was, you know, I have the MyShake app and I work for the Water Board's emergency management program. And in the app, you can only like specify 3 locations for the app to go, you know, for that to go off. And I was hoping for something a little more statewide since, you know, we watch the entire state. I didn't know if that was coming or if there was a way to get that, but you know, when she said she didn't usually wasn't involved with the app itself, I kind of dropped my hand. I didn't want to bother her.
Yeah, if you reach out to Jen Strauss,
I'm here.
She's here. Maybe she can answer your question.
So this is one thing that we have trouble getting clear messaging to people on. So apologies for the confusion. The notifications that you can set your own custom locations for are after the fact. It's not the earthquake early warning. It's the just notifications that an earthquake has happened, and here's the official information from the NEIC about that earthquake. The earthquake early warning aspect of the MyShake app is based on location services for the phone. So that's an automated service that doesn't need to be typed in or set in any settings. And so if you're in the area of expected light shaking or higher for an estimated magnitude 4.5 earthquake or higher, you would receive the alert, much like happens for the other apps, including QuakeAlert and Android system, and much like happens for WIA for earthquakes above magnitude 4.5.
Perfect. Thank you, Miss Jennifer.
No problem.
Okay, let's move on.
Next up, Daniel, do you want to introduce Jason?
Yes, I'd be honored. My video has been stopped, so I'll continue verbally. Good evening, everyone. This is Daniel Humsey. I'm with the City and County of San Francisco, and I manage the Neighborhood Empowerment Network. And I've had a chance to connect and meet with many of you in the past, and just want to thank our friends at the ECA for once again putting together this great webinar. I am happy to announce also to introduce Jason Ballmann, who is a key member of the team and is one of the reasons why ECA's content is so pretty and so meaningful. So I'll kick it over to Jason to share an update.
Thanks for the flattery. It gets you really far with me, everybody. Good afternoon. I lead a lot of our communications efforts with the Southern California Earthquake Center, where we support, of course, the Earthquake Country Alliance. We are part of the Earthquake Country Alliance as well, and we coordinate great ShakeOut earthquake drills and also tsunami zone. Now, we won't have time to go through all of those campaigns and all of that messaging today. So what I just did was clicked a link over here, or put a link, or several links actually, to all the different campaigns and the messaging that goes with them too. Now, what we'll do is focus on ShakeOut messaging, as that is coming up soon. International ShakeOut Day is October 21st, but there are different ways people can participate. People can also choose when they participate. It doesn't always have to be on International ShakeOut Day, which is the 21st of October, but can also be, but is also each third Thursday of October every year. So there's lots of ways to participate. And before we get too far down this messaging page and focus on the social media part of the messaging today, I just want to highlight that we do have new messaging over here, guidance for ShakeOut during COVID-19. There are lots of wonderful graphics and flyers and just some good copy to use if you're trying to motivate people to participate in ShakeOut in spite of everything that's still going on with COVID. So lots of good, empathetic, motivational, empowering messaging there. Now, let's just focus on social media messaging and what we have prepared. So to do that, we go to shakeout.org/messaging, which is the page that I'm already on, and I linked for you in the chat. And then we go to down in this little section, messaging resources. And I'm just going to highlight some of the text. You can kind of see where I am, and generally speaking. And I'm going to move my mouse around ShakeOut general social media messaging. Right now, we just have it only available in English. We're going to relaunch the Spanish very soon. And when I click on the English button here, it's going to take me to the English version of the ShakeOut social media content. You'll see our official channels listed here for ShakeOut. And then you'll see some of our partners like CalOES and FEMA and ReadyGov and CalQuake, and which is the California Earthquake Authority. And below this section, you'll also see social media content suggestions. And so that's what we're going to focus on today. And we only have a few minutes left of our time. So what I'll do is show you these three sections for Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And then I will also provide a live example of how we might use some of the Twitter content to choose a tweet and then post it. And we will actually publish from the ShakeOut Twitter account live today through this process, which will be really fun. All right, so if we click here on Facebook, this expands a section of just simple, general, pre-written social media content. Now, I know some of you are new, some of you have been with us for a little bit, and some of you helped develop this organization. So some of this messaging might seem a little basic or too simple. Some of it might be just right, and whatever fits the three little bears mentality here. So whatever works best for you. The next section down here is the Twitter content. Now I can collapse these, the Instagram content. Now I can collapse these sections, but I can also expand them again, collapse them as all I want, and then click on Instagram. I can see that there's some graphics that are optimized for Instagram. They're in a nice square ratio that takes up all the available real estate in the feed versus something that might just be rectangular or in a smaller or different other kind of ratio. And then also I can collapse this, and then I can click on the Twitter section and look at some of this messaging here too. And again, a lot of this is very simple, encouraging people to participate in ShakeOut, showing them what job curve and hold on means, that kind of thing. So look in your chat window. I have links to all sorts of more advanced messaging for earthquake preparedness and mitigation issues beyond ShakeOut. Look there, it's there. And also, we'll take a tweet here, and let's just use the simple join us for ShakeOut tweet. That's the top one here. So what I'm going to do is just copy the text, and I'm either going to right click on it or Control-C on a PC or Command-C on a Mac. I'm actually on a Mac. So I have that copied, and then I'm going to drag this image over to my desktop so I can find it more easily later. Or I can also right click on it and save image as. And then I'm just going to go over to our Twitter account, which I already have open. And I'm just going to paste the text just like that. And then I'm going down, there's a little auto image that kind of shows up, this preview. I don't really love that. So I'm just going to push an X here to get that out of the view. And then I'm going to go to my desktop images, select the Twitter image that I just saved. All looks good to me. And then I'm just going to go ahead and push tweet. And that's it. And that's how you use our ShakeOut social media messaging as seen here to then append to a tweet and publish. And any questions, I guess, at this point, I'd be happy to take them also through the chat as we go on through the meeting too. Thank you.
Okay, we do have a comment from Annette in the chat about looking for 3 to 4 suggestions for action-oriented programs for the ShakeOut. Of course, in addition to social media, there really are a lot of great ideas that people have done over the years, and we, in terms of videos and taping raffle tickets under the tables so that people can find those and then win a prize, or even putting little prizes there. So if you have ideas, this is kind of where we're about. Share those types of ideas as we go through the presentation today. There is going to be a section on ShakeOut later on. So let's crowdsource fun ideas for ShakeOut. Any other questions for Jason? Okay, we will move on. Thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you.
Great. And now I guess I'd like to hand it back over to our esteemed colleague, Mark Benthien, to give us an update on this very important program, the MiniGrant Program, which the ECA supports, which advances very smart tactical investments in our local communities in advancing their mitigation goals.
Thank you, Daniel. And let me just double check one thing here. Okay. Hello again, everyone. So for the each year, ECA Bay Area provides what we call mini awards, which we're about to hear from the recipients of this year's mini awards and what they did. As I'll describe later, these are $500 or $1,000 purchases of materials that we have shipped to recipients after having submitted an application that gets reviewed. Very short application, but lots of great ideas, and we want to share those with you today. So first up, we have Hively, which is a childcare organization, and who's going to be presenting for Hively?
It's going to be Elaine Trueblood. Elaine, please take yourself off mute and join us.
And turn your camera on.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elaine with Hively. We are a social services agency serving low-income families in Alameda County. So we focus mainly on supporting families with young children in the 0 to 5 age range, including providing childcare subsidies, and also supporting childcare providers, providing professional development for them, and also during the pandemic, helping them, providing them with sanitizer, masks, and so forth. So I wrote this grant for earthquake safety supplies for our childcare providers. And that really gave a great bang for the buck, because not only did it help the childcare provider, it helped all the kids in their care as well as the childcare staff. So as you can see, we provided safety supplies to 12 childcare providers, which ultimately benefited 132 children and 18 childcare staff. In addition to receiving the supplies, we also asked Earthquake Country Alliance to provide an earthquake preparedness training for our providers. And so you'll see some of the feedback that we got from the providers, that they thought the training was great. And you'll see, if you can go, yeah. So here are some pictures of the earthquake safety supplies in action, bolting the furnitures to the wall and the electrical equipment to the furniture. Also books so that they don't fall, and children are often on the floor, and so it was really important that things not fall on top of them in an earthquake. Yep, and this is just some quotes from the providers talking about what they learned from the training. And some of the things that they'll implement. A lot of them mentioned the rabbits in the hole idea to teach the kids.
That's an earthquake story about in a childcare setting, you teach kids how to respond if you yell rabbit in the hole, or it's the wolf's coming, and it's an equivalent to what, rather than teaching them about scary earthquake, you just kind of scary wolf. It's more of an analogy and a fun story, so you can look that up online.
Yeah, so they really enjoyed that. A lot of them mentioned that the rabbits in the hole, that they want to teach that to their kids.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Elaine. Great job. We're going to keep moving quickly through each of our recipients. So thank you for being with us and sharing that today. Next up, we have Martinez Area Cert. Is that Steve?
That's Stephen Andrews.
Stephen Andrews.
Hello, everyone. Stephen Andrews with Martinez Area Cert, the Community Emergency Response Team. We received $1,500 in mini awards for 2 projects, one at the Senior Community Center and the other for Meals on Wheels. Both were related to getting community facilities, reducing the earthquake hazards, non-structural earthquake hazards. And so we implemented those in both locations for both programs. The key impact too was we did a lot of outreach to seniors about earthquake preparedness, and we developed our own mini workshop, really a 2-hour workshop that we did online, and it became super popular. We've done 3 of them so far, and we have a 4th one coming up in September. Next slide. We go to the next slide. Okay. Our COVID challenges were getting access to the facilities to get the work done, and then also doing the logistics with our work, half dozen volunteers that were involved in the project doing the actual implementation. The image on the right that you see, the slide there, that was the welcoming slide to our online training for Secure Your Space. Like I said, that was popular. And then you see a couple of images down below, one in the kitchen where they're putting on the bungee cords to keep all the kitchen utensils from flying around, and another where we're securing cabinets to the stud walls. So new opportunities that came up was a partnership with the Senior Center. We did those Zoom-based outreach programs that were great. And you can see the image here, some of the kitchen equipment that we were securing. Another slide about finding a wall stud from our workshop. Next slide. And then one of the fun things that came out of this was a lot of people wanted to know, how do you actually do the installation? Our team did all the work, but people that were attending the workshop wanted to know about how to do it. So one of the things that we developed is a mobile device installation demonstration unit. That's a fancy word for a road show that we can take to workshops and places like Ace Hardware to show people how to actually install these earthquake mitigation devices, like the bungee cords, like the tether straps on the back of the TV, like the no jump picture hooks. And we also included in the slideshow some self-checks to see if they knew what non-structural hazards they had within their home or their business. So it was a real fun project.
Stephen, thank you very much. That's fantastic. Thanks a lot. If you any questions, be putting in the chat. We can take some at the end, perhaps. So next up, we have Nancy Brown.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. Sonoma County Department of Emergency Management. I'm Dr. Nancy Brown. I am the Community Preparedness Program Manager for the Department of Emergency Management. And our project was looking at, we got 20 home fastening kits as our grant, and we utilized these to promote earthquake safety on social media, specifically on our Facebook page. Sonoma County, rightly so, is a very fire-focused community when we talk about preparedness. They have very little bandwidth left over for earthquake preparedness. So we use this opportunity to have a different way to approach earthquake preparedness by offering a contest where you could, on social media, reply to it and get sent a home hardening device. We were also very interested to see in this contest if there was any difference between the amount of Spanish replies and English replies we had. We did ads in both Spanish and in English, and we were set to distribute 50% of these to Spanish-speaking population and 50% to English-speaking population. This did end up happening organically, which I think is really cool. Another really interesting thing about the project was that we received as many views and as many other type of indications that people saw and responded to these ads on English and Spanish. Now, Sonoma County is about 25% Latinx. So that means that it's a really effective way for us to communicate with Spanish speaking population. Because as you can see here, the people reached is very similar English and Spanish. So it's just a really effective way for us to be able to reach some populations that we often have more challenges with. I think one other thing I'd like to interject here is through these interactions, we were able to identify a couple of Latinx community leaders, which is really important for my work because I need people that I can reach out to that can then reach out to their community to talk about emergency preparedness. And these are some of the pictures that were sent back to us for people. That was one of the things we asked them to do, was return to us a picture of their devices installed. So here's some of the pictures we got back. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Fantastic work. And next up, we will be hearing from Alas Ayudando Latinos a Soñar. And let me just switch the presenters. And who is speaking?
Hi, everyone. My name is Annde Gonzalez. I'm here. Can you guys hear me? Sorry, our internet.
Can you turn your camera on, possibly?
It is on. Is
okay,
it?
let me look for you here.
You, Annde Gonzalez.
All right. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm here from Alas, like Mark mentioned, Ayudando Latinos a Soñar. We're located in Hively Bay on the coast side. We're a nonprofit organization that provides programs to the community such as COVID-19 support. We have cultural arts like dance for the community, mariachi. We have the educational program, mental health, immigration. We also have farm workers in individual cases. We recently partnered up with Los Listos and certification, the community emergency response team, and we've been supporting them by having workshops and helping the Latino culture, especially the Latinx families, get educated on what is the first response, earthquake. We did this a couple of months ago, and we were really blessed that there was at least 100 adults, families graduating and educating themselves to be first responders just in case there's an earthquake. You guys gave us all the tools, and we started a new workshop, and it's starting on September 20th and the 21st, and we do plan to have more graduates. We were so blessed to get safety books, the Rockets Earthquake Safety Activity books. As you can see, during the summer, Alas had a camp. The cases of COVID were really low over here, so we were blessed to have this summer camp, and we educated our children. And the parents were so happy to receive those books because most of the Latino parents, especially in the farmer workers, they don't know how to read. They were not intellectually educated. And they said that they made comment to us saying that these books were straight to the point, that you guys created the ShakeOut and all these programs, create a book that is straight to the point. It's simple to understand, no need to read. The pictures were really helpful to educate their children. And yeah, that's it. And as you can see in the images, also the children were getting educated, and we were able to provide them a backpack as well with an earthquake or first respond kits.
Annde, thank you very much. This is great. And I will have a slide later on about the Rocket Rules materials, but we can put a link into to the chat right now about that. rocketrules.org/earthquakes is where you can find they have materials for many different types of situations in addition to earthquakes. Here's the link for that in the chat right now. And we will continue on.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much. Oh, there we go. A couple more pictures. And so now Sonoma County.
Hi, so I'm going to be presenting for Community Action Partnership. My name is Rocio Rodriguez. I am the Director of COAD, Community Organizations Active in Disaster, but CAP is our fiscal sponsor, and this project was accomplished in their facilities. So there are 27 sites that are part of CAP. They are a family resource center, and they have other partnering sites that participate in CAP programs, about 150 to 210 employees and volunteers. And their main categories of service include education, housing, financial crisis assistance. Oh, I just got moved. I cannot finish that. But the list there, thanks. So the main focus for this project was at Sloan House, which is a shelter for women and children for about 22 women or children. Because of COVID-19, they were moved out of the shelter because congregate sheltering was not allowed, and were moved into different areas. They were just moved back about 1 month ago. So while they were gone, some of the projects were able to be finished or that were done. So we can see here the bookshelves that were secured. And there are also some cabinets, and I think it was the facilities manager for CAP Sonoma who did this project on his own. Because of COVID, all of the staff were not allowed to be back in facilities or in our offices. Usually these projects would be done in collaboration with staff and also with the women and children that are at Sloan House to participate in the project. So one thing that was told to me by the facilities manager was that the straps did add a lot of extra protection. He did feel a lot more secure with them in place. They used to have a 2x4L bracket. And so he kind of double secured. So for some of them, put the strap on in addition to it. And then for some of them, put the strap on separately. And the next slide. He also said it was really easy to install. He didn't have any issues with installation and wanted to give that feedback. There were delays, and as I mentioned, because of the move with the families in Sloan House and coming back, other COVID-19 projects that were in the 27 different facilities. So we're going to be spending the next 2 months with finishing installation, since families and staff are to a certain degree back in the offices. And I believe that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rocio. What's really great is that such an important place where it's important that people feel safe and that we can help. That's wonderful. So our next up, we have Community Action Marin and Shut Up Butler. And so let's get you up.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. I'm Shuda Butler. I'm the newly appointed Director of Operations here at Community Action Marin, and we are Marin's largest nonprofit social services provider. We have multiple child care sites. We offer mental health services. We have safety net support services, homeless outreach, and we really focus on crisis to thriving with what we do. These are just pictures and some of our program names. What we did with the grant is implemented safety at our main administration building in San Rafael. We had nothing happening. So you can see we have piles of dishes and cups and mugs and everything with nothing there. So we went through the entire office. It was a great opportunity for us to learn about what do we actually need to keep, what can we get rid of, and cleaned out a lot of unnecessary file cabinets and things, and got these safety locks on, and are working towards creating a much more robust training and information for staff here at our administration office. So it was a great learning experience. Right now, staff are just like, what? Why can't I get in? How do I get in? Who put child locks? But otherwise, it's been a great experience for all of us. We have a lot of big, heavy printers and things, and getting those strapped down. Creating safety for staff is, you know, moving more towards that. It's been a great experience, and we're looking forward to implementing even more. We still have a few more things left to do, but it's been an interesting and fulfilling road.
Thank you very much, Shuda. It's fantastic and great to see the work you got done, and also hear that it helped you in some other ways too, get it with the organization. So it's a non-structural mitigation and spring cleaning project. Very good. So, okay, well, those are some of the projects from this year from the Bay Area. We also had recipients in other parts of the state, and we are looking to have the 2022 program announced this fall. I'll show you a timeline in a second, but you know, again, this is a purpose of the program is to improve your and your community's earthquake resilience in terms of both earthquake mitigation, preventing potential losses and injuries, and also education. So for the Bay Area this coming year, we plan on 9 awards of $500 to $1,000 each. And the proposals will be priority for the mitigation education and kind of earthquake awareness activities, but we're not supporting just basic supplies, you know, supply kits and such. So it's the part of where the money from FEMA is coming from, and we're really wanting to make sure that people are preventing those losses and injuries, things especially specific to earthquakes. So there will be packages similar to this for different communities, and even some more types of packages. And you can also kind of put together your own, working with vendors or stores. We work with 2 of the largest suppliers of earthquake fasteners to get quite good deals in terms of what you get for this amount of money. And so you want to look at those, but then if you have other ideas for doing different things, we can certainly work with you in putting something together. You know, if there's some of the items in these kits that you're like, yeah, it's good, but I really don't need that, you know, let us know. We can figure that out together with you in advance. Also on the education side, we have a couple rocket rules books and activity books, and the Map Your Neighborhood program. Yeah, there's a typo there. It should be 1,250 Map Your Neighborhood shingle workbooks. As you can see at the top right. But if you have other ideas for earthquake education, raising awareness of local hazards, those types of things, you can propose those too. So this is the likely time frame of applications opening near the end of October, with the mid-November rather application deadline. So our goal is by the end of the year that everybody has been notified if they're accepted, and if you've kind of put together your own package, you've gotten your invoices to us so that we can pay everything and get those packages to you. The projects would need to be completed by May 31st. And then, as we've seen today, you will then present one of the kind of the evaluation parts is to present at the meeting like today. And then there's a survey, and we'd like you to send us pictures and maybe even videos. Another aspect of this, I really encourage, and you see the announcement come out for our Secure Your Space workshop, as we'll continue to be doing. Do attend that if you're going to be doing this type of work. It's really important that these materials are installed correctly. And it's easy to kind of get them backwards and use them in unique ways. We've seen pictures of things that are meant to secure one thing, securing very different things. So literally at one picture was a cabinet door latch securing a bookshelf. So it was very creative. So look for those workshops, and the recording that we have, you'll see that there's a webinar series I'll have a slide for later on that has recording you can watch too. Okay, so next up, we're going to we're going to move to another presenter, and let's see, that will be Daniel to introduce.
Yes. So it's an honor to introduce Dr. Austin Elliott, who will provide us with our Quakes Break.
Thanks for having me. I'm here to tell you about all the seismic activity that has happened since the last ECA Bay Area meeting back in May. So I'm going to jump right into it and give a review. I'm an earthquake geologist at the USGS, and I'll review some of what's gone on. So around the whole world in this 3-month period, there have actually been quite some large earthquakes. Just a few weeks ago, Alaska had a magnitude 8.2 earthquake. That's the largest one that's hit the United States in 50 years. Fortunately, of course, it was out in the Aleutian Islands. Not the effects were fairly minimal, not huge population exposure. And so it wasn't as big a deal as an earthquake of that magnitude might otherwise be. Similarly large earthquakes happened elsewhere in the South Sandwich Islands. A large sequence is ongoing. There were large earthquakes in China, in Peru, Chile, Panama, the usual cast of characters in seismic hazard. Of course, Haiti is still reeling from the earthquake that happened on August 14th. This is just some updated statistics and numbers from USAID showing the really unfortunate number of casualties, a great deal of displacement, houses and structures that were destroyed. And so they're still recovering from that, and there's a sort of big international mobilization effort to deal with that. And of course, they're facing other hazards like the pandemic and tropical storms on top of all that. Coming back home, closer back in our region where we've been more fortunate during this period, we still had a great number of the small earthquakes that we normally do. Since May, the USGS has recorded 12,600 earthquakes in Northern California. About 100 of them were greater than magnitude 3, which is approaching a level that people could feel. And we generally have felt reports for most of those. There were some standouts during the period. That includes a magnitude 4.2 in Tahoe, a magnitude 5.1 just offshore the north coast by Petrolia. Two that I'll talk about in a second directly in the Bay Area, a 3.9 and a 3.6 in the East Bay on the active faults there. There was a slightly surprising earthquake outside Bakersfield that got people's attention. Slightly uncommon place for earthquakes to happen, but not unknown or unheard of. And then the big standout during this period was a little over a month ago, the Antelope Valley earthquake. I'll talk a little bit more about that one. So let's dive into some of these ones that happened just nearby. The two most widely felt ones in the Bay Area were this magnitude 3.6 in Alum Rock. That's a familiar epicentral location for a lot of earthquakes over the past couple decades. And it's outside of San Jose. And that one hit just after 5 in the morning, and a fair number of people felt it around the South Bay across in San Jose. Dr. Chung could talk more about this, but the initial estimate by the ShakeAlert system was 4.5, which would have been large enough to issue alerts, although that was quickly, like within 2 seconds, revised down closer to the actual magnitude that was ultimately determined for the earthquake. At the end of June, there was a magnitude 3.9 on the Hayward Fault in just near the town of San Lorenzo, basically in Hayward itself. That was very widely felt. We have 12,000 reports from across the Bay Area. It hit at, sorry, it says 6:29, should be 3:49 p.m. That one hit middle of the afternoon. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's the next one. That was at 6:30 p.m. Pretty widely felt. People were kind of at home, getting home for dinner, that sort of thing. The felt extents, as you can see in the maps that I've presented here, really show the difference that a little bit larger magnitude makes in how widely an earthquake is felt, how many people are aware of it. And of course, there are factors like time of day. At 5:15 in the morning, people may be still asleep, just sleep straight through the earthquake, while at 6:30, people may tend to be aware. We'll jump now to the biggest one in this period in the region, and that was a magnitude 6 earthquake on July 8th. This one was at 3:49 in the afternoon. It hit in the eastern Sierras in a valley called the Slinkard Valley, a little bit southeast of Lake Tahoe, north of Lake Mono. If you ever take Monitor Pass over to the eastern Sierras, that's the beautiful valley that you see on the other end of it. It was a result of normal faulting. As you can see from the Did You Feel It map, it was widely felt across the region. Around the Bay Area, it was hit or miss whether people felt it. It was fairly distant, so most people didn't notice the rattling, but if you were in larger buildings, they swayed quite a bit in the distant waves from that earthquake. I actually hosted the USGS press conference about that event, so if you want to learn more about it, you can visit the USGS website here or look that up online and watch the video where I report some of the details. Just for fun, I threw in some photos of me as a graduate student standing above Slinkard Valley, literally arm waving at the fault that produced this earthquake way back about a decade ago. The final little bit of fun here is during that earthquake, I felt it here at my apartment in San Francisco. We're up on the 18th floor and it swayed a great deal. We had pretty strong sort of circular motion, and I actually have a little seismometer that sits on the floor of my living room. This is a recording of the motions from it. So at the top, you see the seismic waves as recorded by the instrument. And on these bottom panels, especially pay attention to this one. This is the north and east motion. So this is map view of my seismometer tracing out the ground motion during this earthquake. And you can see at about this point, the building really starts getting swaying. And I think you'll see it shortly. This is about when we really started noticing it and realized there was a pretty big earthquake happening somewhere in the region. And that
Austin, what's the dimensions of that movement?
Yeah, on the bottom here, that's in centimeters. So you're looking at about 6 centimeters from side to side there. So 3 centimeters of direction. Yeah, it was a pretty good sway here in a high building, but I had friends living in houses nearby that did not feel it at all because it was that long period distant motion that you get. That's the end of the quake update for these 3 months. Happy to take any questions you guys have.
Fantastic, Austin. I'm going to go ahead and not seeing any questions, but oh, someone asked, Serena asked, what is that little seismometer you have? Is that something that people can get?
Yeah, that's a Raspberry Shake. It's a small company that makes basically hobbyist seismometers, they're basically based on a Raspberry Pi computer, a little microcomputer chip. They sit in a little plastic housing, or you can build your own. Yeah, if you look up Raspberry Shake online, you can find them. Sometimes we use them for real professional purposes and deploy them. They're low cost seismic sensors, and they do decent recording of earthquakes. So I have that one just to watch exactly these cases.
And I put a link to the chat for Raspberry Shake too, which doesn't that sound delicious right now? So thank you very much, Austin. This is fantastic. So we'll move on very quickly. I'm going to run through some updates for the Earthquake Country Alliance and ShakeOut this year. And given the time, we're running a little bit behind. Just want to hopefully you know about our website at earthquakecountry.org. We also have a website in Spanish at terremotos.org. And all the links I'm about to be running through here quickly are going to be going into the chat, thanks to Sharon. Our 7 steps to earthquake safety on both websites, available in English and Spanish. 7 steps in Siete Pasos. Our core way of organizing what to do before, during, and after. And this is really designed for all of us to use as a kind of a one-stop shop on these topics. So we really encourage you, if people ask you, where do I get the, what to do for earthquake safety and what to do during an earthquake and even after, you can use these links to let them know. In fact, last year, we had what we call Safer at Home webinar series because of course of COVID. And as I mentioned earlier, the first one was on securing and fastening furniture and other objects, or secure your space. But then we had each of the 7 steps. So you can still find those webinars online on our homepage and also at earthquakecountry.org/safer-at-home. We also want to invite you to participate in different ECA activities statewide. A lot of materials are developed and activities like webinars that, on different topics by these sector-based outreach committees. And if you're interested in those, if you're a member of any of those topics or want to create your own committee on a different sector, reach out through the earthquakecountry.org/committees. And also to Sharon Sando, ECA Bay Area Coordinator, you can email bayarea@earthquakecountry.org. We also have our outreach bureaus are really coordinating the outreach that we do either as speakers for presentations or at events when we can have events. And we do have a web form that you can request a presenter. For example, earlier, our presenter from Hively, the child care organization, had requested through that form. I gave that presentation to them. So we can provide virtual presentations now and hopefully in person once we can too. We also have a participation bureau, which is really looking at a county by county level recruitment for both ShakeOut and Tsunami Zone. And if you're interested in helping your county be more involved and more participation, especially if you're with a county or city government agency, but others too, reach out to us and let us know. Info at earthquakecountry.org, and a media bureau in the region. So if you or others in your organization are public information officers and would like to be a part of the ECA Bay Area Media Bureau, go ahead and reach out to us as well. And so getting to ShakeOut, in 2019, it was a banner year worldwide and nationwide and in California. Of course, with COVID last year, we weren't sure what to expect. We had in California about 2/3 participation, which was not knowing what might happen. We felt pretty good. We hope to be more this year. We hoped that everything would be kind of back to being able to have everyone in person for drills. But as we did last year, and we have still available this year, we do have some resources to help you with hybrid, in-person, remote type of drills. And of course, if you have any questions about drop, cover, hold on, go to earthquakecountry.org/step 5. Step 5 of the 7 steps of earthquake safety. And we do have information. You notice this is actually a brand new version of our graphics. We're increasing the accessibility in terms, color contrast and all sorts of factors of many of our resources. And you can soon find this new version at earthquakecountry.org/accessibility. It's kind of finalized. We need to start posting everything. In addition, we're updating many of our materials in that same way. So you'll be seeing new versions of both ECA and ShakeOut materials. And through support from Cal OES and FEMA, where these are being translated into 13 additional languages. So in 14 languages available soon in total. And you may have seen an email coming out yesterday that if you are on the email list, if you're a member of ECA, you should have seen that, both for today's workshop and also a request for some languages that we're looking for people to help review the translations we get from the professional company, make sure that the terminology is correct. So look at that email, and if you know anybody or you can help, that'd be great. We're just reviewing already translated materials. Thank you. We also have information on and videos format for what to do during earthquakes. You can see it on YouTube here and in the links in the chat, as well as download those videos for putting into your presentations at shakeout.org/messaging. A lot of materials on the ShakeOut website, of course, and handouts of different types and graphics for your websites. And of course, that shakeout.org/messaging page that Jason Ballmann discussed earlier really makes that easy for you to share on social media and in other ways. we heard earlier about the use of rocket rules materials. And in addition to these booklets, they also have some videos, English and Spanish. So go there if you have if you do outreach or children who are of that right age level. So for this year, as we did last year, we're encouraging people to be creative and think about how they might adjust as needed. If more social distancing is still needed, you can even have, if you're a large organization, you can have your drills in smaller groups, especially if you include evacuation to a meeting area. Not required, but if you do that, you may want to not, as a drill, have everybody go to that one location. So you could have your drill on any day, at any time. It's actually a good idea to mix it up and not only have it at 10:21 a.m. on 10/21, October 21st in 2021, as many people might be doing. Really think about learning by having it at a different time of day. And we do have some resources for supporting video conferencing drills, or even using for, when you're in person at PowerPoint. So at shakeout.org/COVID-19, you'll find currently four, and we're working on to have more versions of presentations that give a brief overview, and then have a recording that you can play over Zoom that has some sound effects and a narration for what to do during an earthquake. Or you can read it yourself. So you can use that for both in person and especially for hybrid or everyone remote type of drills. And it's always really important that you consider inclusivity in your drill planning, include everyone to make sure that the type of drill and exercise you're doing is for everyone in your organization, including for those who have mobility limitations or are deaf or hard of hearing and others. So that's why we're really making sure our materials are being updated so that you can use them, but include them also in your planning. Include everyone in your planning. That is a regular good idea, so that they are then fully able to participate. Also on the ShakeOut day from 11 to 4, there's going to be a special update on the release of the Haywired scenario for an earthquake on the Hayward Fault. The final volume 3, which covers the societal consequences, is going to be finally announced and coming out with all the details of what happens as a result. Volume 1 was on the earthquake science itself. Volume 2 was on the engineering. So these are the societal connections. We will be emailing out links to this, but just you can kind of maybe save the date on your calendar if you'd be interested in watching this. There will be agenda you can soon coming out. And here's how to connect with us. And again, these links in the chat. And I want to see if there's any questions here. Also, Kara Gross has put her information. She's organizing that Haywired event on ShakeOut Day. And
there is a question from Dr. Nancy Brown. She asked if there was any chance of moving ShakeOut to spring because of wildfire considerations.
It's as we've said, you can do your ShakeOut drill any day of the year. It is an international date now, so we have all the states, other countries kind of lined up. But it is certainly something that everyone can do on any day of the year. It may be something that is really considered at the statewide level to shift, but would be a challenge. Part of the reason why it was done at the beginning of the year was the recommendation of schools who want to have their drills at the beginning of the year and not at the end of the year, and then the students are only in that particular classroom with that particular teacher and setting for only a couple months, so they want to have it towards the beginning of the year. That's how it was originally scheduled. Okay, so we'll try to answer questions further in the chat. I want to now move to a video, short video from Anne Rosinski. I'm going to, so hopefully this works when I press play. Next up, we're going to have our first mitigation moment. This is a new feature and component of our meetings, where at each meeting we'll have about 5 minutes, just a quick update on new resources, information, and updates about how to retrofit buildings, how to do other things that actually prevent and reduce losses. And today we're going to hear from Annde Rosinski, who's the Earthquake Program Manager with FEMA Region 9. Hi, Annde.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
We're doing well, thanks. So what's an Earthquake Program Manager with FEMA?
Well, my job, first of all, I'm an engineering geologist, and my job is to help communities develop projects and nurture them toward funding that will reduce or eliminate repetitive loss from disasters. And in this case, we're talking specifically about earthquake, but we really like to take a multi-hazard approach to that. And FEMA Region 9 is, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is California, but also Arizona, Nevada, Hawaii, and our territories out in the Pacific, Samoa and Guam.
Fantastic. And how long have you been with FEMA?
I've actually, that's a trick question. I was at FEMA back in the late 90s, and then I came back to FEMA again in 2019. So I've been back with FEMA for about 2.5 years. And I worked for the state formerly. I was doing seismic hazard work.
Fantastic. Hopefully when we're able to be together in person, you can come and speak again in one of our meetings, or even virtually. So,
I hosted one of your meetings when I first started, remember?
Yes, way back when, yes. So at FEMA in Oakland, that's right.
Correct.
Yeah. So let's see, get this moving. You have a new document on earthquake insurance.
Yes, I'm really excited about this. This has been a joint effort with several of our partners. And the idea is to shine another spotlight on the topic of earthquake insurance. Earthquake insurance has been around for a long time. California is one of the leaders in that. But the public tends to have, ideas about it that are older, and so oh, it's expensive, and so what we want to do is encourage people to explore their options. So just taking a quick tour of the document, at the top you see there's a really nice graphic, and if you look closely, there's lots of little earthquake impacts, damage to a car and a house and infrastructure. And then moving down to the main portion of this one pager, the product is intended to be action oriented. So in red, we have things that like planning for what you can control, exploring various safety net options that can be used in combination, and contacting your insurance agent to learn more. And then in blue, to help provide additional motivation, a reminder that federal relief funds are limited, and it's really not best to rely on them. So, and it's all available on our FEMA website right now.
Fantastic. It's even just knowing that earthquake insurance is something you have to get in addition to your homeowner's insurance. A lot of people still don't understand that. So this is fantastic.
And there's a new product available too, the parametric product. So that's what we want to let people know that, hey, there's some new options that you should explore.
Fantastic. And then speaking of options and opportunities, there's some new funding and grant programs, or new or continued as well.
Yes, so the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Community is the big one I want to talk about. It's a brand new program that just the first year of funding was 2021. It's for, as it says, building resilient infrastructure and communities, and local jurisdictions, cities, counties, states, territories are and tribes are eligible, and it's pretty wide open in terms of what can be funded. So for instance, community lifelines that are really fundamental services to help a community get back on its feet is the concept of functional recovery. So it's not just the infrastructure, it's not just the pipelines, it's the service that those pipelines provide and the people that work for those services that are so important. And things like natural and cultural resources are also included as eligible projects under government services, and safety and security lifelines. And residential projects are considered shelter under food, water, and shelter lifelines. So you can see there's a lot of room. So my message to all of you is think about putting your application together. Think broadly, because chances are there's a way to get that project funded, but you never know unless you try. And also, I do also want to encourage you that it's not just for construction type projects. What we are called pre-mitigation planning activities, like doing outreach with your community, talking to your stakeholders, doing assessments of vulnerability, doing building inventories. Those are all things that can be funded. And then that information can go into a benefit cost analysis into a larger, like a construction project. So if you're strategic about it, you can use this source of money to, help you build toward that project and get you across the finish line.
One thing I want to point out that just in case it might get misunderstood is while the word new here is because brick is new, it's not new building.
Correct. Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, so it's for mostly for existing buildings. That's right. So we'll put these links in the chat too. So there's some webinars coming up, and mostly the organizations might work, nonprofits and others, with their local city or county, and kind of putting the plan in that goes through the state. So there's a process there to learn about too. All right. Well, Anne, thank you so much for sharing these new resources and opportunities. And if here is Anne's contact information. So she's not here with us. That was a recording, but all the links that were mentioned just then are in the chat. And Sharon, could you put her email address there too into the chat? We'll now turn to updates from the California Earthquake Authority, and I will look for Annde. There you are. You're on. Annde Ewertsen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. We're so happy to be here and let us talk about what's happening that's new and exciting with us. Next slide, please. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Annde Ewertsen. I am the Mitigation Director for the CEA and the EBB Managing Director. So what we do is have a program that's available for grants for homeowners, and specifically we're looking at older homes that have known vulnerabilities to earthquake damage. Next slide, please. There's really 4 vulnerabilities. We have a grant program right now for one. That's the first one there on the slide for cripple walls, but there's also the very intense vulnerability for living space over garage, hillside houses, and then of course chimneys are also a vulnerability. Retrofitting does not mean that we're earthquake proofing a house. Rather, it's that we're making sure that the damage is less likely and that the house is more likely to be habitable after an earthquake. Next slide, please. So for our Earthquake Brace Bolt program, also commonly referred to as EBB, we are looking to retrofit crawl spaces. If it does have cripple walls, they will need to be braced with plywood, and they all need to be bolted. We provide a grant up to $3,000. Our current requirement is that it's owner occupied. We select houses in zip codes with a high seismic hazard and with a lot of pre-1940 houses, because we know that that's where it's really where the vulnerability lives, although the program does allow houses up to pre-1980. We've collected a lot of important data. Retrofit averages costs, it says there is $5,200 in California. I actually just updated this yesterday with the increase in costs that we've seen since COVID. It's now about $5,395. Houses are more expensive to retrofit in Northern California, and we are retrofitting a number of houses in a city, which is making those communities more resilient. And we're very excited to announce we've surpassed 15,000 retrofits. Right now, we're about 15,500. Next slide, please. So this is typically what you see. On the left is the crawl space before a retrofit. On the right is the crawl space after the retrofit. Plywood's been attached to those cripple walls, and there's bolts behind the plywood that is anchoring the house to the foundation. This is also what we would see for a shorter cripple wall and what it looks like afterwards. The foundation plates are also put in place if you don't have a cripple wall. That's an example there, and framing clips are also applied. So we're very excited to announce that this year, when we open registration, we will also have a grant that's specific for underserved communities, low-income communities, that we will be providing funds up to 100% of the cost of the retrofit. Next slide, please. In order to be eligible for this supplemental grant, your house will have to qualify like all houses for an EBB retrofit. You need to be a homeowner. Your household income has to be around $69,000 or less. That number may be changing to slightly higher number. It's based on a number that is an actual code for our program, 80% of the statewide median income. And your house has to be built before 1980, and you have to have a house that's in one of the zip codes that we are in. We're in 355 zip codes throughout the state currently. We'll add a few more when we open registration. Next slide, please. So we have a great new website. It's actually a website we've repurposed a little bit. You can get to it a couple different ways, but it's Strengthen My House. It has all sorts of great information about how to mitigate the vulnerabilities I spoke about earlier. So please go to strengthenmyhouse.com. Next slide. We're also very excited to tell you about the Disaster Mitigation and Tax Parity Act. It's an act that we've been working on for quite some time. We have multiple people or multiple states, 12 bipartisan co-sponsors and 4 states that would allow grants that are provided to homeowners to be tax-free at the federal level when they are not part of the Stafford Act or Hazard Mitigation Grant Program funding. So currently our program allows for, in the state of California, to be tax-free, the grants, and since the current programming has been funded from HMGP, they've been federally free of taxes, but that's not the case if funding comes from other locations, like this supplemental grant. Next slide, please. So this is just a list of some of the supporting organizations that are part of that bill. Next slide. Lastly, I'd just like to say that we look like we will be opening registration the week after ShakeOut. So that's very exciting. We haven't had the opportunity to open registration for more than 1.5 years because we haven't had funding, but it looks like our funding will be coming through and we will be opening registration the 4th week or so in October. And that's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Any questions about, Andy, I have a question. If they email, as we put in the link, the info@earthquakebracebolt.com, is that a way of asking how organizations might help support the legislation?
You could send it there and it would get to me, or you could email me directly and I can
go ahead and put your email address in the chat, please.
Okay.
One question did come, can we get the CEA to increase the loss of use coverage?
The loss of use coverage, I believe you have the options now to have a number of different amounts if you want to choose that option.
That's if you're not able to remain in your home, that you have coverage to live somewhere else.
Right.
All right. Well, given the time, we're gonna just, we had hoped to have time to kind of have some discussion, but to leave you with thinking about some questions. Look, you can read the questions that are on the screen. Were you inspired by any mini award ideas that you might propose? Of course, coming up is National Preparedness Month in September. So what might you be doing then and leading up towards ShakeOut? How might you be adapting your ShakeOut drill to accommodate COVID-19? Feel free to start putting answers into the chat to these questions. We'll stay on a little bit still here to address any final questions and share, if anybody has things to share. We have been putting the link to the survey for today's workshop in the chat, and please do take that. It will take you only a couple minutes. It's really simple. And here's that link again just now. Let's see, so just the final set of links that used. If you did not hear about this by a direct email from us, it means you're not on our list. You're not an ECA member. We encourage you to join us. earthquakecountry.join. .org/join. I want to say one special thanks to Courtney, our ASL interpreter, who did a heroic work today. There was supposed to be 2 interpreters so she could take a break. So everyone virtually or somebody that she's been working the whole time. So thank you very much, Courtney. We really appreciate you. And also I'll just turn to Daniel and Dina for your final wrap up of today's workshop, and then we'll also stay for any final questions.
Sure. Well, I'll just start off by just thanking everyone for taking the time to participate in today's workshop. I know a lot of folks have a myriad of things pulling on them right now, from our normal jobs to our extended overtime work on the pandemic, and just appreciate everyone's investment in this work and your constancy in advancing the health and safety of our communities.
Great, and totally agree with that, Daniel. It's nice to see so many folks come out virtually, and looking forward to hearing all about your ShakeOut plans and drills, and hopefully pictures and videos to share at our next quarterly workshop. And look forward to seeing everybody in person someday next year. But thank you, and continue your efforts. Without all of you, we couldn't do this great work. So thank you, everybody, for your participation, your expertise, all of our subject matter experts. It's always enjoyable to hear what's new and what's coming, and share. That's all I can say. Please share the information with others. And you can also save the chat if you didn't want to have to worry about writing everything down. But Sharon, thank you. She always does such a wonderful job in keeping us on track and getting all those links in so that we can share them.
Dina,
So
that's a really
everybody.
good point you make. If you look in the chat on the bottom right, you should see 3 dots. Click that. You can click to save the chat. So all of it will be saved locally on your computer. I just want to thank the entire ECA Bay Area Coordinating Committee, many of whom are on with us today, and also especially Sharon Sandow-Jagroot, who has really pulled all of it together to have this workshop today, working with the mini awardees and everybody who presented. And we'll just look to, is there any questions? Feel free to raise your hand, and we can just have actually use by voice so we can talk, or you can put in the chat. Any final comments or questions? Thanks for the thanks in the chat. Next workshop will be in November. Like this, there will be webinars happening between now and then, and of course ShakeOut. And make sure you're registered. Go to shakeout.org/California, renew your registration or register for the first time, and we look forward to learning more about what you did. And looks like no really final comments coming in. Any questions, as Sharon just pointed out, put email to bayarea@earthquakecountry.org, and we will do our best to respond very quickly. And with that, I will stop and end the workshop. Have a good afternoon, everyone.